a while to get enough courage to come up here.
Would you call that alignment?
Call it good.
Would you call it resolve? Would you call it decision? When you say, it took me a while to get enough courage, what do you mean? I finally decided that I wanted to do this more than I didn't want to do it.
Right.
Sort of a little bang there.
Well, somewhere in my lifetime, I heard this expression that when you ask a question, the answer is really in the question. So a lot of times I just listen to other people's questions and the answers come. But
well, if you didn't have the ability to know the answer, you couldn't ask the question. And the art is in the question. In other words, that's why you said, I'll go forth into a sea of contrast where new questions will be born within me. Because I know that once the question is born, the answer comes forth. That's the asking and answering that we've been talking about, isn't it? So, what's the most important part of this universal process? Your asking or our answering? Your physical part of wanting to know, or source energy's part of supplying what you are asking for? We think we're also in this together. Yes.
Yes, tied together.
Yes.
Before I ask my question, I just want to make a comment about virtual reality. I was going to a ship on the Pacific coast with friends, and we were going out to see the whales. And I did this, and it was just wonderful. And I saw these whales, and I was videoing them. And then one day I just said, I can't stand anymore. I got to go to the aquarium and see the whales. And it was like the virtual reality does kind of make you want to go and do what you're thinking of.
Well, what happens is, as you activate a vibration on a pretty regular basis, then that action begins to feel like the next logical step. Where in the beginning, it didn't feel like the next logical step. And when you say, I just couldn't stand it anymore, we like that feeling of impulse or compulsion that is within you, where it's just illogical to do anything else. And when things start lining up like that, then you know that you're on that path, that the resistance is subsiding.
I was feeling fine and feeling good, and I'm not feeling bad. I mean, it's like that. You step up and you're feeling fine, and then all of a sudden you see, well, my goodness, it looks like the ocean has turned bloody. But I don't feel depressed, or it's just, it's that feeling like, wow, I'm feeling so good, but wow, what's going on over there? How did that happen? How did I get in this room with my good feelings and see that there's a lot of people who are really in pain?
Well, that's part of what you said when you came forth into this physical environment. You never said, I will go forth into an environment where everyone is having the same identical experience. You said, this will be an environment of contrast that will inspire me to desire. Sometimes when we have a discussion with someone like this, they will say, well, Abraham, you want me to put my head in the sand, or you want me to ignore their plight? It's hard for me to go off and be joyful when there are other people not going off and being joyful. In other words, I feel guilty about being joyful when others aren't joyful. And we say, you cannot uplift unless you are uplifted. And you cannot be uplifted when you are looking at plight. So you just have to decide that you're going to be uplifted. Now you say, well, I don't feel that bad. And yet the analogy of a bloody ocean is a pretty strong analogy. What you're saying is, I personally am not doing that badly, and I personally am not worried so much for me, but I'm worried on behalf of others. And we say, worry is worry, and your cork isn't floating. You're not in a place of truly allowing, and you're not helping your cause when you feel like that. And so then you say, oh, well, but it feels wrong for me to ignore it altogether. It seems like I ought to be doing something. And we say, we're not asking you to ignore it. We're asking you to find thoughts about it that feel better. Like, economies bounce back. Like, this is not as big and bad as people are making it out to be. Like, we will each find our own way. Like, people have a lot of means of taking care. Like, we are a community that will take care of one another. Like, it doesn't have to unfold in exactly the way that we all thought that it might. There are many answers. There are many solutions to all of this. In other words, just keep reaching for the thought that feels less resistant to you, and you will be among those who help find solutions. There are people scrambling for solutions. There are people in positions that have the ability to find solutions. What we are saying is that to any individual that we are addressing, you have to find a way of relaxing and feeling good about whatever is happening. And sometimes it means taking your attention away from it completely in order to allow your natural well-being to flow. Well-being is an individual thing. It is allowed by you or it is not allowed by you, and the emotion that you feel is the indicator of it. There is no such thing as a global experience. There's just an experience of a lot of individuals that adds up to similar experiences, but they are individuals having the experience. If you had something, you weren't sure what it was, your body is not feeling the same as it once did, and you walk into a doctor's office, and the doctor takes a look at you and goes, "Ah!" Not the best thing for you. No. In other words, amplifying the concern that you had and causing you further disconnection and further separation from your well-being. And that's sort of equivalent to what you're doing with the market, or to what so many are doing with the market. They're sort of overreacting, and for many, there is a reason for doing it. So now we come back to the question that we asked earlier today. Which do you choose, truth or untruth? And you said truth, which means if those were your only choices, you must say, the market's not doing as well as it was. You must say, people are not worth on paper as much as they once were. You must say, people's retirements are not in the secure place that they once appeared to be. But if we say, are you choosing thoughts that feel good or thoughts that feel bad? You say, well, maybe I can't talk about the market right now, because the truth of it is so in my face, and as I want to find a thought that feels better, I can't seem to find one here. And we say, fortunately, there are other thoughts you could think about. And you say, but I feel compelled to think about this thought, Abraham. This is the thought that's on the tongues of the masses. And we say, does it serve you? And you say, well, it's so true. It's in the paper. It's on the newscast. It's in our bank accounts. It affects us in so many ways. Shouldn't I think about it? And we say, you're missing the only question that matters. Does it feel good when you think about it? And you say, no, it doesn't feel good when I think about it, but still I think I should think about it. And we say, therein lies your problem. You keep thinking that you should think about things, whether they feel good or not, when every fiber of your non-physical being is trying to get you not to think about that which doesn't feel good. Your inner being is not joining you in those thoughts. That's why you feel so bad when you think them, you see. So if you tend to your connection first, you can trust that. You can trust your guidance and you can trust your connection, because it never goes away. And the same place that you get clarity, and the same place that you get balance, and the same place you get stamina, and the same place you get wellness, and the same place that you get ease, the same place that you get all of those things is the same place that you get abundance. It's the same place that you get well-being. It's this avenue that is open to you. And when you don't close it off, you thrive. And when you do close it off, you don't. So what's happening in your market today is the best picture that we have ever seen of bad news traveling fast, pinching person after person after person after person after person. It's a mass pinching off. That's all it is. It's a mass pinching off. It's an orchestrated, globally offered advertisement that breeds vulnerability. And even in all of that, you thrive. So if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would begin saying, it's a non-issue. It's a non-issue. It doesn't feel good, therefore it is not essential to me. I focus only upon what feels good. And there will be plenty that will say, well, then you are foolish, because if you do not tend to your history, you are bound to repeat it. And then you say, I have found it to be exactly opposite. I found it to be that if we focus upon history and make it a part of our global consciousness, that we repeat it every single time, because law of attraction, which I do trust, says that it must be. You see.
How did I attract it? I was minding my own business. And there it is. It pops up. It seems so big that I couldn't avoid it.
Well, sometimes things come into your consciousness because the stove was just a little hot. And it didn't seem problematic. And you got so used to hanging around on it that you didn't realize how much it was heating up. and then you were more involved in it than you meant to be. But that's only because you were sloppy in your attention. In other words, you and everyone else, almost no one wants more than anything to feel good. Otherwise, you wouldn't go to horror movies. You wouldn't read the newspapers. In other words, if you really wanted to feel good, you wouldn't talk about your ex-husband. You wouldn't remember the insult. You wouldn't say, oh yeah, I remember her. She's the one that said I looked. In other words, you would not repeat insults if you really wanted to feel good. And so what happens is, this is where we began here today. This is why Esther thumps on whatever is next to her and says, I can damn well choose. Because it is irritating to her to discover that she, like you, has been choosing things and making them a big enough player in her vibration that they are affecting her without even knowing she's making the choice. And we're here to say the only way that you can circumvent that is by deciding that you're going to choose your thoughts by how they feel, not by how well advertised they are, not by how often offered they are, not by how many other people are living them. It's a really weird one of you who doesn't worry about old age and decline. It's a really weird one of you that doesn't have some big, extensive health care plan that is sure to take care of you with tubes up your nose until you slide into the disgusting decline of decrepit death. In other words, almost none of you are expecting to play it out in any sort of a healthy way. You've practiced the decline so many times. And so when we look out into your mass consciousness, if you don't have some health care plan in place, do you know that's what most of them are worried about? Most of them have lost the means to pay for the tubes that are going to be up their nose when they get old and sick. That's what they're worried about. And we're glad they can't pay for them. We would like it if your whole economic and medical experience would fall apart of its own economic weight. And no longer could you be force-fed all this stuff about your inevitable decline. We'd like it if they said, well, when we get old, we just shoot them. When they're so miserable that they don't want to live, we just take them out like the horse and shoot them. In other words, you'd all be so much better off because you've got this big thing. But you know why you have this big thing? Because there are so many who are benefiting by it. And so you just have to decide where you're going to play in that game. We think it's a really healthy one of you who can't afford to put yourself in one of those facilities. And we think it's a wonderful thing if your government gets so bogged down in bureaucracy that it doesn't have time to deal with you. Because we think you'd be a lot better off if you don't make those plans for yourself. You see? And so, we're just trying to stir things up here a little bit. We're just wanting you to realize that life is really supposed to be good, and it's supposed to feel good, and it's not going to feel good later if it doesn't feel good now. In other words, you can't worry your way into a happy retirement. It's not possible. You can't have an unhappy journey and expect a happy ending. You can trust law of attraction. It just doesn't line up that way, you see. So don't let all of this baloney about what's going on with the economy, don't let it bother you. It's sort of like, who cares who's president? It doesn't make any difference. It makes no difference what's going on because that has nothing to do with you. What has to do with you is how you vibrate. Now, you can make all those issues and you can let all those issues affect your vibration, but those issues have nothing to do with your vibration. The only thing that has anything to do with your vibration is how important it is for you to feel good. And if it's not important enough for you to feel good, to hang up the telephone if somebody's giving you a hard time, or to turn off the television if it's making you upset, or to walk out of the room if somebody's haranguing about something that you don't want. In other words, how far should I go in my discomfort? And we say we'd get away as quick as we could. And that doesn't mean walk away forevermore. It means change the subject in your own mind until you have positioned yourself vibrationally different on the radar screen of life. And what begins to happen is a whole new world appears to you when you consistently practice a vibration that feels good to you while you practice it. This is a huge universe with potential of unbelievable joy, and why anyone would use this format as an environment in which to complain and suffer and worry is beyond us. In other words, it isn't what you planned at all. We really gave it to you on behalf of so many.
No. If I see what I have to do, and even though I see that the sea is bloody, I just have to feel good. I just have to feel good and not dwell on it.
You cannot feel good looking at a bloody sea. So we would encourage you to take yourself somewhere where the sea is not bloody.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.